Good morning, my roll chums. This is Dr. Robotnik recording, and now I'm about to go see a movie that's featuring the most brilliant, the most handsome man in the universe instead of that silly little alien. Well, what do you know? There's my poster. Now look at this. No one can compare with that mustache, and not the lack of surprise in. What do you know? It's this little moronic hedgehog. This hero may be about me, but you know, the movie should be really about me. Why not call it Robotnik Conquers the World or Eggman Hardboy, because I do not approve this with brilliant eyesight. So, would you like to take a picture, please? IQ. Make sure you go buy a latte to go see my movie.
Okay.
Are we gonna... Oh no! They're gonna take pictures of him? I don't see any mustaches for any geniuses around there, because most of these aliens are really iconic. You're still recording me, agents? I don't approve most of these kids. A ring! With this power, no one can stop me by the courses. I can go over to the hedgehog throne. You're the ones that usually take the hedgehogs. What do you know? You got this block with this. They can go a little bit more smarter than this. I like his style. He's the one that thinks like a robot. Because usually, machines are better than men. Well, that's really good. What are you supposed to be, a donut? You see, most of these people just really take pictures of this blue hedgehog, but you know, they should be someone that should take a picture of me. Because with his power, no one can recover it. Because whatever this creature is, I'll get the job to secure it, neutralize it, and see what makes it tick. So you better keep on making my movie, or else I'll rip my mustache off and ask me for a latte. This is Dr. Robotnik, signing off. Good evening, my roll chums. This is I, Dr. Robotnik. And of course, for my Billy messages, I'm just gonna sprout a message to all of you Regal Theater seekings. Make sure you go pay your tickets, or else I'll be shouting out with your lattes and shouting at my initiating drones and go see the movie where it should be about me, Dr. Robotnik, conquering the world for Eggman Hardboil. And make sure you give me a latte the way I want it, with Austrian goat milk. So hope you enjoy. This is Dr. Robotnik, signing off. My grand spawn of insanity remains absolute. Isn't that right, Agent Stone? Why don't you get a head start? Do some rock commentates! Rock commentates! Come on! It's hilarious! What's the matter with you?
Here's the sitch.
Uninhabited planet.
No resources, no supplies.
No apparently home. Ha! A lesser man would die here. I'll be home by Christmas. Roll condensate! Come on! Cheer up! Alright, so let's just get to this review. It is me, Daniel, but you may call me the Pop Culture Dude, and today, oh man, this movie has been a long journey from the start, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of history. Sonic the Hedgehog is my favorite video game character of all time, and Jim Carrey is my favorite movie actor of all time, and I never expected 29 years in the making of this movie to exist ever since 1991. I mean, sure, it's been announced since 2014 it was going to be a live-action CGI hybrid that Sony was going to produce, and I was skeptical about it. Not the live-action CGI idea, it was the studio behind it, that Sony wanted to make the Sonic movie year after year, kind of like they did with Spider-Man, and I was concerned about that. But later in 2017, when Paramount Pictures got the rights, I was at least satisfied with that, since they do have their experience with their live-action CGI productions with Transformers and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But other than that, I just felt like they were the right studio for it, because they try to focus themselves on making a self-contained story. And as for the movie crew themselves, I really got interested. Director Jeff Fowler, I have to give props for Jeff Fowler for making his first ever feature-length film with Sonic the Hedgehog, and I could definitely tell he knows the lore of Sonic the Hedgehog, and I could tell that he's definitely a true fan as well. And as a first movie, I loved it. I really did. Like, it's hands down my favorite video game movie adaptation of all time, and so far, my favorite movie of 2020. And this t-shirt right there, this is officially from Paramount Pictures that's given me a Sonic movie t-shirt. Why did I get it? Because I send them my tickets of going to see the movie on opening day, on Valentine's Day, and I've been getting so much likes, retweets, and replies of images from all the Sonic movies. So for those of you who follow me on Twitter, which is the same user as my first channel, William Daffy Duck, that's where you eventually recognize it. But I love Paramount Pictures, and I love what the crew that they did making this movie of the beloved hedgehog that I grew up with and loved since childhood. And this will be a non-spoiler but a half-spoiler review. And first off, I'm just going to tell you how much I feel for my experience of watching the movie, from the plot, the characters, and all the elements that I just love from the movie. So thank you, Paramount Pictures, for giving me the Sonic the Hedgehog t-shirt for free from the movie, as me for being a loyal fan and a dependent fan as well. And fun fact, this is my very first Sonic the Hedgehog t-shirt, so after 18 years of my life, since I'm 18 years old, this is my very first Sonic t-shirt, so thanks for your courtesy, Paramount Pictures. So technically, I'm just going to start off on what do I love about my theater experience in the movie. From what you saw in the video clip where I was portraying as Jim Carrey's Dr. Robotnik, and I will get to that like later on, but I had a good time in my life. It was one of the best audiences experience ever since Avengers Endgame, where I was so in character dressing as Jim Carrey's Dr. Robotnik. I took pictures with young kids out there dressing up in their little Sonic hoodies. There was a lot of anticipation, and I thought the theater was going to be empty, but it was actually pretty packed. I gotta give a shout out to my local Regal theater that decorated the entire place to make it all Sonic the Hedgehog theme. And there were so many families and so many kids that eventually go see this movie, and a lot of people loved it, especially that one kid that was wearing a Sonic hat all the way through. He's like, "I'm gonna beat you," and I did my Robotnik impression, like, "Not if I get to you first, you moronic hedgehog." So after that, most people were enjoyed, and I had my good time experience. And the one thing is, I'm so glad that this theater audience experience, the kids, the adults, and everyone in the theater enjoyed this movie. They laughed, they cheer, they cry, and oh my gosh, Valentine's Day 2020 was never a day expected. I'm not a huge fan of the holiday, but for this year, it was a smart decision that the movie crew and the studio that made this movie delayed the movie after the redesign. And don't get me wrong, the old design wasn't that good in my opinion. It does look hideous, but the thing is, it's a good thing that they actually listen to the fans and they do something that they do care, because Paramount and Jeff Fowler, Tim Miller, Patrick Casey, Josh Miller, Neil H. Morris, the whole crew behind this movie, yeah, it's half of the same guys that made the Fast and Furious movies and Deadpool. But other than that, they do a good job of actually listening to the audience. They care for the audience, and they care about making a good movie instead of just selling out and be like a cash grab, like Alvin the Chipmunks or Smurfs or Garfield or Yogi Bear or any of those live-action CGI hybrids that doesn't seem to work out that well. But for Sonic the Hedgehog, in my personal opinion, it actually works. Especially by saying like, "Oh, it's a live-action CGI film. This video game movie is going to be trash. This is not the Sonic movie I want. I'm going to hate this movie and, of course, put backlash on it and decide to go see Birds of Prey instead." So, other than that, I just completely ignored it. I've been defending this movie. Even when it had the backlash, I was still hyped for the movie because, like I said, it's a movie that I never expected to happen. And like I said, I'm going to start off with the cast. Ben Schwartz is hands down pulls out one of the best voice acting performances in a movie since Robin Williams when he portrayed the genie in Aladdin. Ben Schwartz is my favorite Sonic voice actor, and here's the thing, I had my history with previous Sonic the Hedgehog voice actors, and my personal favorite was Jason Griffin. He still holds a special place in my heart. But for what Ben Schwartz put in his formula and in his performance as Sonic the Hedgehog is something that is so meaningful that really brings the character to life. The movie is about Sonic the Hedgehog. Don't think about most of these other human characters are going to have more screen time than Sonic. Not the case. Sonic the Hedgehog, this is his movie. And to me, if it weren't for Ben Schwartz and if it weren't for that redesign, we, the audience, wouldn't have that same emotional empathy in him. Why do I love about Ben Schwartz's Sonic the Hedgehog? Because, first off, he nails the attitude, he nails the voice, his expressions, the way that he quips some lines, and the way that he of course speaks in the character. And the one thing that I just really like about this version of Sonic, he's the most relatable Sonic that I ever seen so far in my life, because one of the things that I just love about this movie, it goes to the theme of loneliness and friendship. And to me, I'm so glad the people in my theater, including the kids and even the adults, felt bad for Sonic and they had emotion over him. And to me, I had that issue when I was a kid, and even some people nowadays have that issue too of we're definitely have like completely like want to be always alone, and we always want to need a friend that we need us. And sometimes we just feel like we just want to fit in. We just want to be, of course, loved and of course cared by other people around us. But it's not that easy. Why? Because we're different. And that's the one thing that we have like emotions over Sonic the Hedgehog. And to me, that leads up to Tom Wachowski, who's played by James Marsden. And speaking of James Marsden, I know most of you guys make fun of him for, oh, he always teams up with every CGI rodent. First a chipmunk, a rabbit, and now a blue hedgehog. Well, here's the thing that I would say about his character, James Marsden, Tom Wachowski, aka Donut Lord, which is a running gag in the movie. But technically, what do I like about James Marsden's Tom Wachowski? For a non-Sonic character that is basically just ordinary human, if you expect him to be just the generic human character that distracts the storyline from our main CGI character, that's not the case. His character, Tom Wachowski, is pretty interesting because he's a small town cop, and since he's living in a small, simple town, there's no crimes, there's not that much big, like, detective cases that he has to do because it's so simple. All he has to do is eat donuts, help ducks cross the road, and eventually help out some crazy neighbors when Sonic is around. And technically, he wanted to achieve much bigger goals in his life, like go to San Francisco and be like a big city cop instead of a small town cop, and I definitely understand that. And he actually has the opportunity where he's married to his wife, Tika Sumpter, and even though Tika Sumpter, there isn't really much I have to say about her, but I do have to say, I like her character in the film. I think she does a really good job playing the wife and being like a true supporter to her husband, Tom Wachowski. But also the most interesting thing is she's a veterinarian and Tom is a husband. And to me, when Sonic interacts with them, that's how you eventually got good human characters just to interact with Sonic the Hedgehog. But back to the Tom Wachowski character, it's interesting that, of course, it's kind of what we expected, but I kind of like that since Sonic has no friends around, and like I said, from Ben Schwartz's performance, you could just feel the emotion in the voice that he actually nails from all of his attitude. And fun fact, Ben Schwartz did not take any inspiration of any of the other Sonic voice actors like Jaleel White, Jason Griffin, Ryan Drummond, or Roger Craig Smith, but he just decided to take his own interpretation of it. And speaking of how is the movie based on, the movie is based heavily on the very first Sonic the Hedgehog video game in 1991, which is only features Sonic and Dr. Robotnik. And speaking of the movie, like, there are so many Easter eggs that I do want to point out, but I'm going to save that for the spoiler section. This is just the non-spoiler section for now. But for this, I'm really satisfied from all the Easter eggs and all the things that I really enjoy. I'm like, oh, I caught that reference, but guess what? I wasn't the only one. There's this one kid that was like sitting right next to me, and he pointed out like every Sonic reference. I'm like, I have to respect that kid. If I had a little brother, I would definitely like be like, we could get along like really well. But other than that, I definitely love the fan service that has been given with the film. And the story, like, I like the pacing of the story. Like, it never drags on. It doesn't rush that much. It's fast-paced. Obviously, gotta go fast. So it's a good thing that it never, like, drags it for too long or slows down. It keeps, like, they give us, like, enough time since the movie's, like, 1 hour and 40 minutes, which is basically 100 minutes. What can you expect from a PG rated film? But the one thing is, I'm so glad the movie lets you get enough time to get to know the characters, because there are 3 main characters: Sonic the Hedgehog, James Marsden, and Dr. Robotnik. And speaking of which, I praise Ben Schwartz for doing such an amazing, phenomenal job as Sonic the Hedgehog. I think he pulls off the greatest depiction of Sonic the Hedgehog, from his youthful energy to his attitude to the way that he quirks his lines, the way that he moves, that he just really nails the role perfectly. And I cannot imagine another actor playing Sonic the Hedgehog. I remember there's this one image back in like December 2018 where we have an earlier Sonic design where he looks like a Build-A-Bear, which is ironic since Build-A-Bear is making a tie-in promotion with the Sonic movie. There's so many product placements in the movie, which I will talk about later. But we also see that Chris Pratt was considered to play Tom. And then it goes to this other leaked image that there's so many actors that were considered to play the roles as Tom and Sonic, like Chris Evans, and there is this one concept art where, yes, Captain America himself is with Sonic during that bar house scene, and the one thing is, he looks so much like the oldest eye Sonic, and he's not wearing gloves, he's wearing blue disgusting cans. I'm like, oh boy, they better not, of course, show him barefooted on it. Ugh, he'll be disgusting blue furry fungus that will be so much disgusting Sonic TV fan art. I have suffered through that a lot. So, technically, they decided not to do that, probably because they're too busy. But other casting considerations like Jake Johnson, Bill Hader, Jason Segel, Justin Timberlake, Adam Pally, which he was in the movie, but he basically played as Deputy Wade, who was basically, he was pretty funny in the movie. But other than that, the other casting choices, Tom Holland to voice Sonic, Sonic Man, running faster than a bullet can. I'll be like, that's not Sonic, that's just Spider-Man in a hedgehog's body. And there's so much other casting considerations like Josh Gad, Chris Pratt, Paul Rudd, Bill Hader, Andy Samberg. I don't know. The casting choice was weird, but like we said, Ben Schwartz. The one thing I just love about Ben Schwartz, he's a huge fan of Sonic the Hedgehog. He loves the classic games, and that's what the movie's basically based heavily on, the classic games. Like, I could tell that most of the cast members and the crew members don't have that much history with the modern games, which may disappoint some of you fans out there. But it's definitely more nostalgic for the classic games, and Ben Schwartz did say his favorite Sonic the Hedgehog game is Sonic the Hedgehog 2 because of the pacing and the fact that it's a multiplayer type of game that has so much variety of levels. And that's what he take inspiration from. Like Ben Schwartz, he played the classic Sonic games from Sonic the Hedgehog 1, 2, 3, and even Sonic Mania, but he technically just take like the study when he reads the script, it's kind of like a young kid. So that's why he goes for like a youthful attitude. And that's why Sonic reminds me of a younger version of myself, like wanting to fit in, very happy, usually a loner, crack like a couple of jokes, and just want to have fun. And that's what I just love about Sonic the Hedgehog. And to me, that's what keeps the magic of that character, and he really brings the character to life. And same for the scenes that Sonic and the character Tom Wachowski, that James Marsden really did a good job with interacting with the CGI character. He was pretty funny, especially I like the Donut Lord gag, and I like some other humor things that he eventually did. And speaking of the comedy, I like some of the jokes where some of them were intended for the kids. I'm like, oh boy, you gotta include a fart joke, or Sonic doing the flossy. I can't do the flossy because it wasn't really that necessary. But other than that, it was something to make the kids laugh. So that's all. And they do slip some adult jokes from James Marsden and of course from Jim Carrey, which we will get to that. But speaking of which, it's a good thing that we develop, like, it's all about the theme of friendship that Sonic and Tom eventually grew with. First off, obviously they eventually started to not liking each other like at the beginning because how their lives are eventually changed since Sonic is on the run, since he, like, the most of the things, like, when Sonic, every time when he gets emotional, there's always electricity sparks that makes him, every time when he feels angry, sad, and filled with fear, that's where that electricity spark, and that started, like, the whole light out that's happening during Green Hills, Montana, because they do a little bit showing a little bit of Green Hills, but at the exact same time, they did a little bit of how is Sonic's life, like, is really handled on Earth, and that's why most of these people are considered Sonic the Hedgehog an outsider. That's why the government's after him. And now we get to the best character, like the best character besides Sonic and Tom, the best character of this movie. And like what I said, if you've been watching my recent videos and my tweets on Twitter, Jim Carrey's my favorite movie actor of all time, and that's why I decided to portray Dr. Robotnik. But Jim Carrey's Dr. Robotnik is a true scene stealer and hands down one of my like top 5 favorite Jim Carrey roles of all time. What are my top 5? Number 5 is Bruce Nolan for Bruce Almighty. Number 4 is Dr. Robotnik. 3 is The Grinch. 2 is Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. And then number 1 is The Mask. So why do I love so much about Dr. Robotnik? So before I say so, let me just take a pause break by drinking water. Whoa! Can't drink it while you're dehydrated. Toasty. Woo! Don't want to spill that for a change. Anyway, I will forget about that. But on their case, Jim Carrey's Dr. Robotnik is the classic 90s Jim Carrey that I grew up with when I was a kid. And that's why he's one of those actors that I can like perform like really well, and of course I know like every role that he's in, like I feel I have a connection with them, and that's what gave me the inspiration to act and perform as an entertainer as a whole. But also his sense of humor is always like so unique, it's so quirky. Like sometimes it could be random, it could be intelligent, it could be clever, it could be like over the top or very physical. Like that's why I love about Jim Carrey's performance, because he's a super multi-talented actor, and that's what I really admire from it. And all of his lines are so iconic, like, "Oh, right, that's smoking. I like it a lot. Hate. Don't overhate. Loathe entirely. Hello. I'm your beloved Count Olaf. I can be your best friend or your worst enemy. I can't lie. It's good. Was that over the top? I couldn't tell." Oh, like, kicks it out to ya. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. So now you see what I mean, like, why am I so obsessed with most of his roles? But anyway, speaking of which, his role as Dr. Robotnik is definitely classic 90s Jim Carrey that I grew up with when I was young. And yeah, his performance reminds me of Ace Ventura, but evil, The Mask, The Grinch, The Riddler, and The Cable Guy combined all in one, and then boom, bada bing, you got your Dr. Robotnik. And speaking of Dr. Robotnik, the one thing that was so interesting about Jim Carrey's performance, it's so original, like, it doesn't, like, try to copy the games. And Jim Carrey says he does not have an experience of playing Sonic the Hedgehog as a whole because he wasn't a huge gamer, which I wasn't a big surprise because he doesn't play games that often, but that doesn't mean he has never played a Sonic game before. And how does he know? In most of his interviews, he's been telling each story about his grandson, Jackson, that he's been playing the classic Sonic games with him. And every time that, just like his character Dr. Robotnik, he always loses. So he always put money on the swear jar. And basically, his grandson just roasted Jim Carrey by saying, like, one day I'm going to be practicing being you. I'll be like, well, of course, hopefully you just go back where you're born, so you're going to be playing at the age of 2. I'm like, wow. That was dark. So every time when Jim had the controls, he'd rather like Sonic go down by going, so I just like that. And the one thing that is so interesting about Dr. Robotnik, like his performance, like he's definitely like more like into the AI, artificial intelligence, like world domination. And Dr. Robotnik did mention like he rather prefers machines over humans just because he's been mistreated by society and the way of the things that he doesn't like really get along with you, because he tells stories to Tom Wachowski and eventually sometimes it's Sonic too, like how much he was an outsider too. So just like Sonic's an outsider, Dr. Robotnik is an outsider, and they definitely hide themselves from society. But Dr. Robotnik, he wants power, he wants dominations, he wants to rule, he wants all of his technology and all of his 300 IQ intelligence to take over. And that's why I'm saying like Dr. Robotnik is using these powers for himself to become superior, and of course he wants to use that to be becoming of his master plan, just like the song "I Am the Eggman," that's what I am. And speaking of which, I definitely do understand for where he's coming from, but I also like the evolution that we are seeing from this character, from ego Dr. Robotnik to full Eggman. So that's where he's saying like, oh, why is he not Eggman? Doesn't sound like Mike Pollock's voice, and why is he not fat yet? Because this is an origin story of Sonic the Hedgehog, and that's why what I really love about this movie, it definitely appeals a lot to everyone. Like, it's something great that the fans like me can enjoy, families can enjoy it, parents and kids will love it, your Valentine's Day, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever you're dating, grab your friends. This movie could work for anyone, because even if you're not a huge fan of Sonic the Hedgehog, you don't have to look up the history or the source of it. You can just watch your movie at the first time. If this is your first time watching a Sonic the Hedgehog movie, then congratulations. Now you get to know the discovery of the character of Sonic. And if you don't really watch that much Jim Carrey movies, then this will be a good experience from what type of experiences that you would see of how Jim Carrey as an actor really performs with his nice sense of humor. And I definitely like crack up like a lot of jokes that were eventually just keep it from him. And the thing is, I definitely like love that how sinister and how evil he is, but also just like a homage to the character Dr. Robotnik, I'm like, just like the character, he's both goofy and silly, but he can also have like a dark, evil, sinister side. And that's why one of my favorite scenes is the dancing scene, and I did try to like recreate it, and it's one of my favorite scenes because Jim Carrey actually improv that scene. Like, it wasn't even scripted. Director Jeff Fowler just gave Jim Carrey all the freedom that he has, and the song choice, you weren't expected to be "I Am the Eggman" or "I Am the Walrus," which foreshadow his role. Jim did mention that in one interview. But one of my favorite scenes was that dance scene because he just let that evil sinister eventually grows to him, and that's why he's going after Sonic the Hedgehog, because Robotnik, he has a Sonic-shaped hole in his heart. And to me, with Sonic the Hedgehog, with the discovery of this silly little alien, is the one that motivates him, creates his own gadgets, his robots, and eventually be in control. And creating Sonic the Hedgehog from his quills, that gives him like more power and eventually world domination, and eventually become an evil genius that soon that he wants to be better than the government. And I like the fact that he's a jerk, like he's a villain. He's even mean to Agent Stone, where he punches him like, "Left yourself open." So technically he just like has like a very mean attitude, and that's why he's a pretty like, why he's not that likable to most many people, and that's why Robotnik is basically more of a loner. And the thing is, from the evil gross part, I think that was a really good song choice because it's an underrated song that was made in the 70s. And Jim Carrey did say that it was a song that he liked during his childhood. And that song fits not just for Jim, but also the character of Dr. Robotnik. You see that he's slipping slowly into madness, like he's becoming the machine and the robot himself. So that's what I just really love about Jim Carrey's Dr. Robotnik's performance. And the thing is, I definitely like how his voice eventually develops, like from normal Jim to the Eggman voice that you know, like, "You're not allowed up there! There's only 7 wonders!" So I definitely like about that. And speaking of which, that's what I really love about the main cast. Anyway, let's talk about the supporting actors that were not given that much screen time just because they weren't the main characters. Let's just talk about the other actors. So I gotta give props to Lee Mashdub, and he does follow me on Twitter. He does a really nice job playing Dr. Robotnik's assistant, Agent Stone. He's actually really polite, really funny, but also he definitely has like a great chemistry with Jim Carrey on the big screen, and I definitely just like seeing him too. And one thing, he did have that talk by saying that he prefers humans, or like he doesn't like humans, and he rather has machines instead of humans. And the one thing that was so hilarious is, when he just licks, like, one of Sonic's quotes, he said, interesting in Japanese, like, I don't know what's the word because I can't speak Japanese. But other than that, I just like that one quote where he says, "One pull step per man, one more step for me," when he's on the track team for Sonic the Hedgehog. And the other cast members, Natasha Rothwell, who was really hilarious in the movie. And what role does she play? She basically play Maddie's sister, I believe. Yeah, basically Maddie Wachowski. She decided to like go to California and decided to take care of their daughter niece, JoJo, played by Melody Newman. And she was really adorable in this movie that she actually gives Sonic the shoes if you watch the commercial. And to me, it was very emotional because Sonic has never gotten like a new gift for pair of shoes or anything. So it was really nice and cute. It gave me an E.T. vibe. And speaking of which, this movie reminds me of E.T., Sam Raimi Spider-Man. Yes, Sam Raimi Spider-Man, Superman, the original 1978 Superman movie, Shazam, Deadpool, Bumblebee, which is also made by Paramount, and both movies are kind of similar, but also Looney Tunes back in action when it comes to the wackiness and the comedy with our live-action human characters and our CGI character, particularly the bar scene. And oh my gosh, I really love the bar scene just because one of the things I did predict is there's this one song that they tease for the movie where it goes, "I'm bad news, travel fast," and that's what I expected in the movie. And Sonic really just wants to have fun, and to me it was very comical that Tom doesn't want like Sonic to just get out of trouble, and Tom and Sonic have to make a deal that they have to defend each other since Robotnik is planning to dissect Sonic and decide to use all this fur and eventually start to kill him in the first place and track him down. Even though Sonic does not cause any harm, he just wants to like be fitted with the family and friends, and that's one of the things. Like, Dr. Robotnik despises Sonic. I'm like, why would you throw your life away for this silly little alien? Like, do nothing about it. Like, he doesn't care about anyone else but himself. But for Tom, since he sees so much how much that Sonic wants in his bucket list, and yes, most of the things Sonic and Tom do ask each other about their bucket list, and Sonic really most importantly wants to be a friend and does want to be alone after the tragic origin story. And speaking of the origin story, it was so sad and so emotional that it made me just tear up. And that's one of the things, like, this is what the movie really succeeds. Like, they just tear me up all the way through at the very end, just make me have emotions for the characters. And that's what I really appreciate, especially for the theme of loneliness. Like, yes, we can be alone most of the time, but one of the things is sometimes isolating yourself and making sure you're very alone is not really a good, healthy habit, or else it'll make you insane, like Dr. Robotnik. But once when you have like a special friend, even if your friendship doesn't go off like a really nice fresh start, it becomes a little bit rocky, kind of like what Tom and Sonic did when they meet each other. But the one thing is, I'm so glad that it's really developed through, because sometimes when you have your friendships where you help each other, you eventually get along and eventually have so many things in common, you eventually get to form a new family. To me, that was very touching that I can understand for myself because I can relate to that topic as well. Same for most parents and same for most kids as well. And that's why I'm so glad they made that message of that theme. Anyway, let's talk about the action sequences. I gotta say, I gotta give props for the visual effects artist. I gotta give props for the cinematographer and Junkie XO. I got very nostalgic, especially from the very opening of the movie where it shows all the rings from Paramount, and then when it goes to SEGA logo where it shows the classic Sonic games, Sonic Adventure, Sonic Generations. I'm like, oh, the feels, the nostalgic childhood feels are kicking in. Oh, this makes me want to be back and become a kid again. So I was very pleased of the opening, and it never makes me so excited for the movie. And it does have break the fourth wall humor, very Deadpool, very Spider-Man, Sam Raimi, Into the Spider-Verse vibes that every time I get the feeling of this movie. But the action sequences, oh my gosh, they were amazing. Like, from the set designs, from the way that Sonic moves, and the way of his action. And yes, they do pay homage to Quicksilver from X-Men Days of Future Past. And James Marsden does play Cyclops in the X-Men movie, so I definitely love that tie-in connection at the same time as well. So I think that was a pretty top-notch. But this time, it's a repeat of that scene, but it's with Sonic the Hedgehog this time. And I definitely love the highway drive scene. It has a mixture of comedy, action. I love the cinematography shots. I love the dialogue that's being spun in with the characters, because I think the strongest elements of this movie was the character interactions that we eventually get from Sonic, Robotnik, and Tom, and most of all of the characters that were really featured. And one of my favorite action sequences, besides like pretty much the majority of the beginning, the final act is kind of like a Tom and Jerry episode, but on steroids, and it's all big budget. Like, I really love the final act, especially if you know which one I'm talking about. It's definitely the one that features Dr. Robotnik chasing Sonic all the way from Paris to China to Egypt, and then all the way back to Green Hills, Montana. And that's why I just really like the action sequences. Just look so amazing, and I have to give the props for the Sonic movie crew for eventually just making that happening for a dream come true. And this is where I get the spoiler territory. So if you have not seen the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, spoiler warning, you have been warned. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the way that the movie began, like basically it just started with a Sonic narration where Dr. Robotnik is chasing them down by saying, "Ah, that was a legal left, by the way." So technically Sonic is basically narrating his origin story. And like I said, this movie is an origin story of Sonic and Dr. Robotnik. And the way that I felt so nostalgic and it made me happy, besides the SEGA opening logo and Nintendo. And when I saw that SEGA opening logo, it was changed into red and it shows Grace. I'm like, are they trying to make fun of Marvel right now by copying their Marvel logo? Or is Paramount making a deal with SEGA to make like SEGA related video game adaptations? I don't know, but it says original film. Or is it because it's the same title logo that they use for Fast and the Furious, and the movie itself produces like Fast and the Furious movies and make jokes about that? But other than that, I like that how we get to the origin story, Sonic the Hedgehog and Baby Sonic. Oh my gosh, he looks so adorable. And they kind of played the music from Sonic Mania. I'm like, I never expected that to happen. And one of the most interesting things is we never get to get a clear answer about Sonic the Hedgehog's parents, but we definitely know that he's being raised by a guardian owl named Longclaw, and turns out it's surprisingly to be a woman. And the one thing is, I like that Sonic makes a lot of pop culture references. Like, he definitely says, like, she's like the Obi-Wan Kenobi to me, except if Obi-Wan Kenobi did not have any feathers or a beak. And eventually, we just learned that Sonic, like, since he has the power to run really fast, we see that there's so many enemies that's actually after his powers. And what are those enemies? Echidnas, the Echidna tribe, aka the relatives of my Ugandan brother, Knuckles. And they were definitely chasing after Sonic. And the one of the things that made me scream, I'm like, oh, Sonic! You did not just make a reference. I got so many chills. A childhood fan fiction come true. Sonic the Hedgehog made a reference to Spider-Man, and Spider-Man is my favorite comic book superhero of all time. And I remember when I was a kid, I always wanted to see Spider-Man and Sonic the Hedgehog crossover fanfiction, even though it was not a crossover fanfiction. But technically, I like what he says, with great power comes bigger, hungry bad guys, where eventually they started chasing him down. And like I said, this movie definitely, like, when it gives me to the vibes of a Superman origin story, but also a Spider-Man origin story. If I compare Sonic to Clark Kent to Superman in this movie, since he's basically an outsider who was, of course, had to leave his planet just because there were so many threats, and basically the parent and the guardian of that alien dies, and then that alien basically just lives his way on Earth, and of course have a chance to come back, and he has problems fitting in, but he has to be careful how the way he uses powers before a bald evil genius like Lex Luthor and Dr. Robotnik is to take over the world and try to like use his power for world domination, and then it's up for the blue hero himself to of course fight and protect the people and uses his power for good to fight the evil. And that's what I'm saying, like, that's a very Superman origin story, but kind of like similar with Spider-Man. Sonic, just like Spider-Man and Sonic, they actually have this young, youthful, teenager type of spirit that eventually just want to have fun, definitely quips a lot of jokes, and that's one of the things I just really like about this movie. So, other than that, as we continue on, like, it was very emotional that the echidnas shot down Longclaw by the wing or the body, and I'm like, ooh, that's gotta hurt. And she gives Sonic these rings, and the one thing that's so special about these rings, besides collecting them and deciding to give, like, Sonic's lives, like, that's pretty much in Sonic the Hedgehog, like, once when you ran out of your rings, you're eventually defeated and you might be dead. Game over. And basically, she decided to send Sonic a ring through the portal and eventually says that he needs to escape portal. And one of the most important lessons that she told Sonic to hide and never stop running. And I'm like, dang, that's really emotional. And Sonic didn't want to be alone. So when the echidnas decided, like, we assume that they killed Longclaw, and then eventually Sonic just wants to, like, doesn't want to be alone. And he's, like, doesn't have that much friends. I'm like, wow, that was really emotional. But that gives you the clear idea of Sonic the Hedgehog and how that pretty much put out his themes as a character as a whole. And that was like very emotional in my opinion. And one thing is, when I mentioned about the Echidna tribe, if they ever make a Sonic movie sequel, if they ever plan on bringing Knuckles in the Sonic movie, oh boy, if Sonic ever meet Knuckles in this potential movie franchise, they are definitely not going to get along, just like in the games, which is very accurate. But that's my speculation. So other than that, I'm so glad it gives you a clear idea of Sonic the Hedgehog's origin story. We get the idea that Tom Wachowski wants to be a big city cop instead of being a small town cop. And turns out that Sonic has been living on Earth in 10 years, and he basically just roams around the city, has fun with the turtle, and eventually does not make it lose. And every time I see Sonic holding a turtle, I kind of see that, wait a minute, Turtles, Sonic, Paramount made the Ninja Turtles live action films, and Sonic is also holding a Ninja Turtle, like he's holding a turtle, and Ben Schwartz voices Leonardo in the Nickelodeon Ninja Turtles series. And to me, I'm like, this is like the closest Sonic the Hedgehog Turtles fan fiction connection that I never expected. It wasn't intended to be one, but that's what I kind of balled in my head. And the song choices, I definitely love they include the song Queen, Don't Stop Me Now. Don't stop me now. Don't stop me. Don't stop me. And I like the montage that they eventually include. And the one thing that made me like, oh, okay, now I see why you put that song. I'll make a supersonic man out of you. And I'm like, okay, supersonic. Kind of like when JJ Fad, but supersonic in the trailer. So I definitely agreed that that was a nice connection to that. And speaking of which, I definitely love the Easter eggs that was definitely playing in. Like, there's this crazy hobo guy named Crazy Carl who has a long beard, and he basically said, you ever heard of the Blue Devil? And guess what? The movie acknowledged one Sonic meme that me and even a kid that was sitting right next to me, a Sonic meme was included, but in a drawing form for Crazy Carl. Don't expect snooping as usual, I see, or do you know the way? Sonic actually made an appearance in the form of a drawing, and he eventually just calls Sonic the Blue Devil, which reminds me of a car that Metal Sonic drives and Sonic Drift, which is a racing game, but also it kind of reminds me of Ace Ventura True When Nature Calls, where Jim Carrey's character Ace Ventura was about to challenge to the Wachutu tribe, and they call him the White Devil, and it kind of reminds me of that. And speaking of which, I definitely love when Sonic made a Jim Carrey reference to another of his movies that Ben Schwartz says, is that one time where he decides to run away from Tom, and he basically was wet and cold. And the one thing is, it's so great that Sonic doesn't like water, just like in the games. And it's this one line where he says, I'm wet, I'm cold, there's a fish on my head. It's a reference to Dumb and Dumber, which is Ben Schwartz's favorite Jim Carrey movie, but at the exact same time, it's the line where Jim Carrey's character Lloyd Christmas, where he was broke and sick and tired of being a poor boy with his friend Harry, he says, I had him with this stuff. We have no food, we have no jobs, our pets' heads are falling off. Like, I definitely love that homage to that. I'm like, this is great. And you do have Jim Carrey in your movie, so that makes everything so much better. So I definitely love the connections and the references to that. Like, there's so many Easter eggs and references from Green Hills to Gotta Go Fast, The Rings, Sonic. We, of course, see chili dogs. Yeah, Sonic does eat chili dogs, which leads up to a fart joke, so kids could laugh at it. But, yeah, I don't know. It's what you expect in a kid's movie, especially if it's a live-action CGI hybrid. But at least it was only one and only two flosses, which was really not unnecessary. But I definitely like the fact that Sonic actually shows a map that features other worlds, and he's supposed to go to the Mushroom Hill planet where he's completely alone and completely safe, and he doesn't want to because he doesn't want to leave Earth because he actually wants to make friends, and Tom Wachowski was definitely the first friend that they eventually did. And Sonic and Tom definitely became good friends, and they actually solved their own personal conflicts, and Tom wants to do his bigger achievement, but Sonic doesn't want to leave Earth because he wants to know like how to make friends. But the problem is, since he's the one that caused the government, but also Dr. Robotnik to chase him down with all of his gadgets to his beautiful little babies, eventually flying around and decide to track Sonic down, he doesn't know how to control his speed and doesn't have to control his power. So, like was said, the electricity usually comes from how he gets usually emotional, and that's one of the things that really develops Sonic the Hedgehog instead of just using his powers. Like, one of my favorite moments, there's this one girl that was sitting right next to me by saying, I think I'm gonna cry. It's during at the final act where Dr. Robotnik was at the very end where he's about to face Sonic the Hedgehog during Green Hills, Montana. It's a good thing that the town folks of these people, like the city, towns, and villains, even though they do think that Sonic is an alien, the Blue Devil, get him away from me, but they eventually supported Sonic the Hedgehog just to see how much Tom and his wife Maddie, who joins along in their adventure, care about Sonic the Hedgehog. And to me, that's where they developed the friendship. Instead of Dr. Robotnik was against that. And Tom did say that he's more human than you'll ever be because Dr. Robotnik, because like I said, in his mind, he's like a robot instead of like a human. That's where he goes, zzz, zzz, just like the character. But technically, one of the things that Sonic, he just become Thor from Avengers Infinity War with the Stormbreaker, but it was so amazing from the visual effects and the CGI where he eventually decided to face the electricity, and the music just gave me so many chills, like, oh man, this is gonna be good. After that amazing third act sequence where he chases him down through the city, and Sonic did another Quicksilver moment and decided to like save, of course, Tom and Maddie to the farm in Green Hills, and I love the chasing, like this is classic Sonic, Dr. Robotnik facing. Even though my only complaint, I kind of wish I would have seen more Sonic and Robotnik conflicts, but from what the movie gives, I'm already satisfied with it. And I like the fact that Sonic calls him Eggman. I'm like, I mean, Dr. Robotnik doesn't get the name Eggman yet, unless if Sonic the Hedgehog and tells him like, hey look, it's a giant talking egg. And that's where he says, oh, you sweet talk, Mr. Eggman, but let's face it, you'll never catch me. Confidence, a full substitute for intelligence. So eventually it just leads up to the final act, which is one of my favorites. And when Sonic has full electricity power, like he actually has the power to take down Dr. Robotnik's aircraft, which reminds me of one aircraft in Sonic Heroes. And the Chinese Great Wall reminds me of Sonic Unleashed. The pyramid reminds me of a landscape that was in Sonic Adventure 2. And I definitely just love that touch to it. And one of the things that was so amazing where he starts chasing Dr. Robotnik down, where he says like, okay, I'm Sonic, and I'm not going to use my powers to hide away from anymore. I'm using my power to protect my friends. And he just says, you have something that's away from me. So he decided to go take down Dr. Robotnik, classic Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, he spin dashes, go all the way. And I like the responses that Dr. Robotnik, like I said, I want to see more Sonic and Robotnik conflicts, maybe if we do get a sequel. But I love the arguments and the confrontations that they have. Especially when Jim Carrey Robotnik, he really nails it from his facial expressions. Especially the fact where he goes like, ah! Now you had it! And then after that, it would be like, all right, Robotnik, you're not going, I'm not leaving Earth, you are. And I like that Robotnik just had his teeth grunting. I'm like, that is so true to the character. And Jim Carrey just nails it. Ben Schwartz just nails it with the voice and the visual effects when Tom decided like to put a portal ring, and after that, Sonic just says Dr. Robotnik into a portal where he goes to the Mushroom Planet where Longclaw's supposed to tell him. I like the facial expression where Jim Carrey's Robotnik goes, ah! And then after that, he's been sent to the portal ring, and then Sonic just saves the town and he saves the day. And the best thing about it is, I thought Sonic was about to like go home back to his home planet, but turns out he didn't. He decided to live with Tom, live with Maddie, and he still calls him Donut Lord and Pretzel Lady. I like that Sonic decided to like give these human characters food nicknames. So technically he decided to live home with Tom and Maddie, and the best thing about it is the government, the secretary, decided to go into the house, and they're just trying to be clear of Sonic is not aware, because even though Green Hills, like the Montana Green Hills, they consider Sonic as a hero, but people around the world, they still think Sonic is an alien, they still think he's responsible. So Tom Maddie still has to hide Sonic, and I do love the theme song Nas that Junkie XL did, like the piano of Green Hills, do 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 do, and Dr. Robotnik's theme, of course. The only thing that they actually acknowledge is the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog animated series, where it was more like a dark, sinister, evil time, where it goes to Robotnik's introduction, where it goes, It only lasted for like 10-15 seconds of the music, so it wasn't that long, but it's a good thing they acknowledge that, since the movie's basically heavily on the 90s Sonic game, and basically any 90s Sonic media, and a little bit of modern, like, references, like the 06 pose where he explodes it, or the Super Smash Bros. Pose. And the thing is that most of the movie, the majority of it is basically more based on the classic games, but also I definitely like the facts that they try to push a little bit of the modern nods to it, and also the meme because of Sonic as well. But I really like how the movie ends, and yes, this movie has a lot of product placements and a lot of movie references too. Like, for an instance, when Sonic is watching the movie Speed with Keanu Reeves, when Tom and Maddie are watching it from their window, and then they're playing a Steve Martin film, and Sonic made so many references to, like, of course, they'll say that quote from the movie Speed with Keanu Reeves, which is a 90s film, and that's what I love about Sonic the Hedgehog and Jim Carrey. They both rule the 90s, and they definitely dominate it, and Sonic the Hedgehog is my favorite video game character, Jim Carrey's my favorite movie actor, and I definitely love the movie tie references, especially the one where Sonic is like, I drive like Vin Diesel! It's all about family, Tom, since the movie is being produced by Fast and the Furious, so I expect some movies that has like fast and speed puns, so I definitely love that touch to that. And one thing is, there's so many product placements, like Sonic made a joke about Robotnik's drones. I'm like, these are about an Amazon related joke. Maddie decided to like move to a house from Zillow, and I see a CVS pharmacy, and now one of the most funniest food product places at the very end. So the secretary decided to give Tom and Maddie, after the hard work they've done, they decided to go eat at Olive Garden. So for those of you on Twitter that wants to spoil the movie without context, we're definitely going to go eat at Olive Garden. Which makes no sense at all, because the Sonic movie food tie-in production is Jack in the Box, and technically they don't sell chili dogs, they sell tacos, and I'm like, that is really a missed opportunity, since Jack in the Box was never mentioned in the movie. And I'm like, why would they pay Olive Garden to be like a product placement in the movie if it's never been a sponsorship? And why not use the Sonic fast food drive-in through? That would be a much more marketable success when it comes to your food promotional tie-ins. Oh, whatever. I guess it has to do with licensing rights. But other than that, I definitely like the Olive Garden vibe to it. But also, Sonic still needs to stay hidden, but he's still like always home to be Tom and Maddie. So technically, Tom and Maddie eventually just adopted Sonic, and basically he thought he has to go to his cave and to his burrow, but technically they build like a whole room that is based on him. And to me, it was very emotional. It was very heartwarming that they actually, Sonic feels like he belongs to someone. Like Tom and Maddie were very respectful. They helped Sonic out, especially helping defeat Dr. Robotnik, the same to the Mushroom Planet. And now he's welcome to a new home where he's on the bed, which is a nice nod to a classic Archie comic book that Sonic was in. And the movie just definitely ends in a high note. Everyone cheer when the title card comes in. And now we get to the mid-credit scenes. Those of you who have missed out the mid-credit scenes, shame on you. You shouldn't be missing out. It's not like a Marvel movie where you have to stay at the very, very end, but you gotta stay through the mid-credits. Like the very first one, after when it shows the title card of Sonic the Hedgehog, we definitely see Jim Carrey's Dr. Robotnik going full Eggman, like bald head, huge mustache, fully red. And that's why from that video skit that I just did, like playing as Dr. Robotnik, was a homage to that post-credit scene. And speaking of the mid-credit scenes, I will make a separate video of my sequel ideas and predictions. So the first one where Dr. Robotnik is stuck in the Mushroom Planet where Sonic has sent him, he definitely just shakes his head. He's talking to himself, he's talking to Agent Stone, and he's talking about his plans, and he eventually decided to grab Sonic's clothes. But the one thing that I was so interested for what he says, I'll be home by Christmas. And I'm like, wait a minute. So Dr. Robotnik, and the way that he moves his robot, where he's like, zzz, zzz, he's walking like a deaf egg robot. And the thing is, I'm like, wait a minute. Eggman could build his empire, his master plans. And when he's holding a quill, I'm like, could this be the possibility of creating Metal Sonic in live action? That will be amazing. And speaking, I will talk about sequel ideas, but that's why really amazing because Eggman's plan is not done yet. That's why Jim Carrey says that he would definitely love to return to play Dr. Robotnik. Not just how much fun that he had playing the role of Dr. Robotnik, but he says he has to reach his apotheosis. Look it up if you don't know what the word. It means highest achievement, and that's what Robotnik has not achieved yet. So that's why this mushroom plan, he could either build the Death Egg or the Egg Empire. I'll save those for the sequel video idea. And now for the second minute credit scene that everyone got excited, I jump out of my seat like, yes, 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 like so Ace Ventura in me. Tails is in the mid-credit scene in live action, and he looks absolutely amazing from the portal ring and Green Hills on top of the mountain. And the one thing that was so amazing, I thought they were going to cast a celebrity to voice Tails, like Ben Schwartz is a celebrity who voiced Sonic, who does an amazing job. Jim Carrey, who's obviously a famous actor, a living legend who plays Dr. Robotnik. But for Tails, they actually brought back the same voice actress, Connolly O'Shaughnessy, who's been voicing Tails since 2014 in Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, aka one of the most despised Sonic games. But other than that, she's been voicing Tails for 6 years, but she actually got the opportunity to reprise her role as Tails in the Sonic movie, this mid-credit scene, where he says, "He's here, I found him. Just hope it's not too late." And he's holding a device that's a homage to Tails' tracking devices like throughout the games. And he looks amazing where he flies off and he decides to go find Sonic. And to me, that leaves me questions. I'm like, wait a minute. Hope it's not too late. Too late for what? Is there a bigger threat happening? What's going on in Sonic's home world? Has Sonic and Tails ever met before when they were young? Because Sonic's best friend is technically Tom in this movie, but who cares? Those mid-credit scenes were very exciting, and to me, that sets up a Sonic movie sequel. And that's why I'm going to see this movie again more than once, just because it's my favorite video game movie. It's not meant to be taken itself too seriously, but it does have the time to develop the characters, have some really good emotional moments, fun comedy, good character interactions, and some action and some adventure. And to me, as a huge fan of Sonic and Jim Carrey, I feel satisfying. It was worth the wait. I've been waiting this movie for my whole entire life to exist. And I definitely love the credit sequence where it shows a pixelated classic Sonic games with Wiz Khalifa, Lil Yachty, Sue the Child, and Ty Dolla $ign by singing "Speed me up, creep on me and tell me at night." And of course, I just couldn't help myself but get to the beat of the music, and I definitely love the 2D digital homage to it. So overall, Sonic the Hedgehog is a really great family-friendly type of movie. I definitely recommend it for most fans and families and people. And like I said, even if you're not a fan, you can still enjoy the movie from the action, comedy, adventure, heart, friendship themes. You all know that. So like I said, go see the movie. Your kids will definitely be engaged for that, and it's definitely worth watching in the theaters. If you want this movie to be successful and eventually get that Sonic movie sequel, especially for those who stick to the mid-credit scenes, I say you gotta watch the movie in theaters, and it depends if you really love the movie, go see it more than once, and at the exact same time, we can finally get that Sonic movie sequel. Because if Paramount can make 5 Transformers movies, 1 Bumblebee spinoff, if the Ninja Turtles movie could get a sequel, and if SpongeBob can get 3 movies on the big screen, why not Sonic the Hedgehog? And to me, we deserve a Sonic movie trilogy, and that's how the way that I picture it in my head. And that's why I want this franchise to continue, because this movie does a really great job of introducing a whole new interpretation of Sonic the Hedgehog to the general audience. My dad likes it, and I'm going to watch it again, but with my cousin Gabriel. So I'm going to be supporting the box office. I definitely love the movie. Jeff Fowler, you did an amazing job for making this movie. Ben Schwartz is amazing as Sonic. Jim Carrey, such a phenomenal job as Dr. Robotnik. James Marsden is a really nice addition as Tom Mikowski, as a really good character. And all the supporting cast, I wish I could mention their names: Neil McDonough, Natasha Rothwell, Tika Sutter, Lee Majdu, Adam Pally. Everyone, you just did an amazing job, and this movie was definitely worth the wait. And personally, for me, it's my favorite video game movie of all time. I want this movie to potentially become a franchise. Ben Schwartz wants to return to Sonic. Jim Carrey wants to be Dr. Robotnik again. Jeff Fowler definitely wants to make another Sonic movie sequel. And like I said, I want this movie to eventually succeed. So like I said, please go watch Sonic the Hedgehog if you can. And like I said, I have to give thanks to Paramount Pictures and the Sonic movie, because I've been waiting this movie for my whole life. And this is like a childhood dream come true. And I have to say thank you for making this movie. And I definitely would watch it multiple times in the theaters, and I definitely want to buy it. So anyway, that's it for my movie review. So let me know your thoughts of the Sonic the Hedgehog movie if you have seen the film, and go watch it in theaters right away before Disney decides to take over the box office brackets in March. And technically, after this video is going to be posted, which is going to be a huge pain to edit, I will make a separate video next week for my Sonic movie sequel ideas and predictions, and then I'll just talk about what I'd like to see in a potential Sonic movie sequel. So thank you guys for watching, and hope you leave a like, subscribe for more content, and of course, I have to see you guys in the next video. Now I'm gonna go eat at Olive Garden. Gotta go fast!